Right, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting of the 8th of April 2015. Welcome to Her Worship the Mayor, councillors, staff, members of the public and the media. There is a tea and coffee trolley out there. It's not fancy coffee or anything, it's just cheap because we're on tight budget here, but members of the public, you're welcome to go in and out as you see fit, and hydrate yourself. We are scheduled to finish this meeting at 3:20. Elected members, you would have received my email. We have the Regional Council coming to chat to us over a cup of tea about their long-term plan, and you'll see on page 89 there is a submission, kind of like a place card holder there for that, so hopefully you can all attend that chat. Apologies I have from Councillor McPherson, and I have apologies for lateness from the Deputy Mayor, Councillors Gallagher and Wilson. I will move those. Can I have a seconder? Councillor King, all those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Just before I confirm the agenda, I just wanted to take a quick moment and share with you some interesting numbers. This number here, 482, is he in the audience? He's not. He is. Oh, look, he's right in front of me. This is the bib number of someone in the audience that works in the organisation, and on the 22nd of March, he swam 3.9 Ks, he biked for 180.2 kilometres, and he ran for 42.2 kilometres. So Aaron Fleming on the 22nd of March ran, swam and biked from Ohaupo to New Plymouth. And he did that in 13 hours and 56 minutes, and he smashed within that 2 of his personal bests. He was one of 67 Kiwis only to compete in the Melbourne Ironman Challenge, and there were 2,500 competitors from 41 countries. Why would be my question, but that is his 6th Ironman Challenge, and he's looking for his 7th. So congratulations, Aaron, well done. Awesome effort. I get tired driving that distance. All right. Right, so with that, I'd like to confirm the agenda, and we have got, I'd like to move item 9, which is the Waikato Expressway, up to after the public forum. We have one member of the public speaking in the public forum on that item. So with that, if that's okay with the committee, I'll move that the agenda be confirmed. Seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Any declarations of interest? No. Right, we're up to the public forum. So Tony Curtin, if you'd like to come and take a seat. You have 3 minutes, and the bell will ding at 2.5 minutes. So we're in your hands. Elected members, I think you have, there's a handout coming as well. So go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. I hope you will agree that it is not possible to make good decisions based on misleading or incomplete information. The NZTA assert in paragraph 52 of your report that if the Horsham Downs link is built, then the bridge at Osborne Road is not required. In reality, there has been no change to the original reasons for having a bridge over the expressway at Osborne Road. What has changed is that the two councils and their communities are unanimous in their agreement on the strategic importance of connecting Resolution Drive to the expressway. Paragraph 57 confirms that the real reason that the bridge over Osborne Road is being omitted is to assist the two councils to fund the connecting road. NZTA also assert that the concerns of the affected community will be addressed by the provision of quality walking and cycling connections and a road connection at Resolution Drive and K Road. These steps represent less than half of what is required, in that they ignore the negative social and economic impacts of closing Osborne Road and the widespread disquiet about the state of K Road. If you want a terrifying, death-defying experience, take a walk or cycle on K Road, particularly on a weekday. You will experience at least half a dozen times the thrill of having a 20-tonne truck appear over the brow of a hill at 80 kilometres an hour, giving you barely enough time to scramble into the long grass and blackberry bushes. Or try driving the T intersection with Osborne Road and play chicken with the cars and trucks travelling westward who appear less than 50 metres away as you are about to turn right. K Road has already been the scene of numerous near misses and crashes and is a fatal accident waiting to happen. This council will have completely failed duty of care if it allows this project to proceed without taking steps to make it safer. Paragraph 49 confirms that the NZTA are not immediately intending to construct southbound access on the interchange. Their position appears to be that their modelling supports the building of an interchange with northbound access but not southbound, and that they are concerned that the expressway will be used as a local road. This position is completely illogical and actually increases the negative economic impacts on the community. I want to leave you in no doubt that there is a unanimous view in our community that we are the sacrificial lambs to fund this project, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that it only proceeds if A, there is access to Resolution Drive off K Road, B, quality walking and cycling facilities are provided, C, K Road is made safer, and D, the southbound access on the interchange is constructed at the same time as the north. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Questions? Councillor Mallett.
Thank you very much. Give some suggestions how K Road could be made safer.
Yes, well, there are a number of points in the road which I've concerned. Probably the most serious is that intersection with K Road and Osborne Road, where the visibility, as I said, is less than 50 metres, and my calculation is that it's about 3 seconds or less than 3 seconds time that you have to cross the intersection. I believe that we need to take the hill off and to create more visibility. And also at that intersection there are a series of trees on the side of the road which block the view of oncoming traffic from the westward bound traffic. So that's one area. The other area is the sides of the road, as I mentioned, in parts at least, are covered in gorse and blackberry and a typical rural road with piles of dirt. There's no reason at all that I can see that they can't be fully cleared and grassed at the side of the road to give people somewhere to go when the trucks go past. The speed limit is too great for the amount of traffic that's on the road. I've heard numbers of 400... Sorry,
what is the speed limit now?
It's 80k.
Okay.
Sorry, it's 80k up to Osborne Road and then increases to 100k.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's one area. The other area is the as I say, the sides of the road, and obviously there are lots of bends there as well. But you know, obviously straightening those would be of assistance. But I think at the very minimum, these other things should be done first.
Presumably, you've expressed these concerns directly to our transport folk.
Not in these terms. This is the first opportunity that I've had to speak about this in a forum like this. But I have expressed the concerns about K Road have been raised in a number of forums by a number of people.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Your Worship?
Have you spoken to the Waikato District Council about your concerns?
Yes.
Okay, and what reception have you received in relation to those?
Well, essentially, they are concerned, but their indications are that the road is now under the Hamilton City Council, therefore it's in their area to deal with.
But some of the issues you're raising are in their boundary area, are they not?
It's not my understanding. My understanding is that all of K Road is in
No, I'm talking about Osborne Road.
Well, Osborne Road, that's the intersection of Osborne Road that I'm speaking about.
Yeah, okay.
So
So your issues are really focused on that as opposed to the blocking off of the road, Osborne Road.
Well, yes, that, because the only alternative, I mean, ideally,
Yep.
for all of us concerned, the proposal would have been to keep Osborne Road open and have the Resolution Drive intersection, but a Resolution Drive interchange. But it seems that that was never put in front of us
Right.
as an option, so we have to
Okay.
deal with what we've got.
Okay, all right, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us today. We're going to take the item now, so you might want to stay and listen to the conversation.
Thank you.
Right, committee, if you turn to page 36, and we will take this report. Welcome, Chris, and we've got Kay here from NZTA as well. Thank you. So, and thank you to those councillors who popped in to our tea room to see the presentation as well. So, Chris, we're in your hands.
Okay, so just some brief comments, councillors. So I take the report as read. Just to reiterate that today is not about the financial implications of this project. We'll bring that to the Finance Committee in May is our best estimate at the moment. Today's more about the strategy and the connection strategy and the scope of our Resolution Drive project, which will help inform the financial conversation that we'll have in a few months' time. But to give councillors confidence, there is in the 10-year plan the funding to undertake what we want to do. It'll just be bringing that formally to council. So look, today is a bit of a summary of a lot of work that's been undertaken by NZTA and council over many years. A lot of this has been before council before, and none of this will be a surprise to council in terms of all of the connections proposed. There are some differences of opinion, as you've just heard, over the Osborne Road overbridge, but I'd suggest that's probably the only sort of last resolved issue on the whole expressway. So just to be clear on a couple of things, that the Osborne Road overbridge is in the jurisdiction of Waikato District Council. It's an NZTA decision that they'll make as part of the Waikato Expressway. Their proposal at the moment is to go back to the community with another public information day at the end of April. And following that public information day, there will be a full planning process that will need to be followed in terms of closing Osborne Road overbridge. So that will be in the form of an alteration to designation to the Waikato Expressway designation. So it will be a fully public process that's followed in terms of authorising, for want of a better word, the closure of Osborne Road overbridge. Council is aware of some of the safety concerns on K Road, and they are issues that we are looking at, and they will form part of the planning process as well. I think there'll be questions that will be asked and will be expected to reasonably respond to in terms of the safety of K Road. So, councillors, if I was just to take you to the recommendations on page 37 of 96. What we're asking council to do there in item B is support the updated connection principles for the Waikato Expressway in accordance with the attachment 2. I've highlighted there in point 1 and point 2 the things that are a little bit different in terms of what council has seen before. So the first one is the connection at the Greenhill Drive interchange. So the understanding we have with NZTA is part of their expressway they will build a 2-lane connection in a 4-lane corridor, and 2 lanes will be okay for many years, but at the point in time when it needs to be upgraded to 4 lanes, that would become a council responsibility. So it's just been clear on that understanding. The second point there in B2 is to do with the Osborne Road overbridge. So we are recommending to council that council does support the exclusion of the Osborne Road overbridge on the basis of the mitigation that's been worked up in discussions with NZTA about walking and cycling facilities on Reynolds Road and the connection with K Road. Item C in the recommendation is about council looking at its own project, which is the Resolution Drive extension, and just agreeing on the scope of that project, which will help inform us moving forward to the costing of that and bringing it back to council. Madam Chair, we're happy to collectively answer any questions councillors have got on the report.
Great, thank you. Councillor Mallett.
Are you able to respond to Mr Curtin's presentation?
Yeah, so Mr Curtin has the issue that I heard Mr Curtin say was about the safety of people using K Road. So that is an issue that we're aware of, and we're working on that as we take that forward to the planning proposal. So we're working on that at the moment. At a general view, we don't think there's a huge increase in traffic on K Road from what's there now. There will be some improvements required which would incorporate into the scope of the works that we propose to council. So we're aware of the issue and we're working on that, and we will need to work through that in terms of the public process with NZTA.
I was just going to say, how would Mr Curtin, 'cause I'm not sure if you've actually directly spoken to Chris or our people, and okay. So as long as there's a process for those,
Yeah.
his
So
suggestions to be picked up and analysed and agreed to if required, and if not.
So I'd certainly like to give council assurances that we'll pick up on those issues. I said to Mr Curtin just beforehand that we will attend the open day that NZTA are proposing at the end of this month, and we'll talk to those issues as council as part of that open day.
Thank you.
Councillor King.
So, excuse my terminology, but when this road was originally designated, is that the right word? And you asked for feedback from the public, and Osborne Road overbridge was shown as being on that. So at that stage, if people, the public in this case, in the area, hadn't commented because they were happy that that road was going there, are they excluded from the process going forward?
No, they're not excluded from the process. As Chris explained, to follow through with our proposal, which we're proposing that we close Osborne Road, we need to go through an alteration to designation. So that will be public. Anyone can come in and comment on it.
Thank you.
Councillor Tooman.
Yes, Madam Chair. On page 44 of the agenda there, you've got the predicted vehicles per day in 2021. I noticed there on Osborne Road, by the intersection of K Road, you've got a projected number of 400 vehicles per day. Would you be able to tell us whether that will be the same number past Reynolds Road? Would it basically stay the same or not, or would it increase?
So when you say past Reynolds Road, you mean on Osborne Road in the vicinity of Osborne Road?
Oh, to the stop.
Yep.
So look, I'm just having trouble picking up my...
Your eyesight's very good, Councillor Tooman. Are you referring to
We've got big
Osborne?
ones.
Oh, you've got big ones. So Osborne going towards what would become a cul-de-sac?
That'd be right, yep.
I don't think I can give you a definitive answer, but you would.
It would probably be far less than the 400, I would.
Yes.
My understanding is the traffic volume on that road's about 200. It's about 200. The issue is, we'd have to deal with that in the planning processes. How much traffic will be on K Road with the closure of Osborne Road, but also the connection to K Road might attract some other movement. So that is work that we're working on, ready for the public process. But it's our view it would be a minor increase on the traffic on K Road at the moment. So I think the vehicle counts is about 200 vehicles per day on Osborne Road, which is very low.
So if there's no access onto the expressway, Osborne Road will basically become a cul-de-sac. Would that be a fair comment? Okay.
Correct.
The other question which I have is on the same page again. Traffic volumes on Resolution Drive, as you leave Wairuiri Drive, is estimated to be 21,600 in 2021. The expressway, I understand, will be finished in 2019, God willing, and we must be getting very close there at that number to 4-laning. So,
Yep.
and yet the proposal is, of course, that we don't 4-lane wide Resolution Drive until
Never.
time sort of dictates it, or traffic volumes dictate it. Would it not be cheaper to do that in conjunction with the expressway at the time, or not? 4-lane?
So council's philosophy would be a just-in-time philosophy to not build capacity ahead of time. So I think you're talking about the section from Wairere Drive probably through to Thomas Road. I think 21,000 or something was the traffic volume indicator on that in 2021. So that is getting up there towards the capacity of a 2-lane road. The whole corridor has been designated and predicated on a future 4-lane corridor, so the land's there to upgrade the road to 4 lanes at the right point in time. So by 2021, it would be starting to get to that point. It's an issue for council. It's a council road, that, not associated with the Waikato Expressway, but it is something that council will have to consider over time. So it's not in our 10-year plan at the moment. It probably sits in the infrastructure strategy 30 years, but every 3 years would be looking at the need for improvements like that and have that conversation with council every 3 years when we do our 10-year planning.
And my final question is, there'll be no access onto the expressway at the interchange at Horsham Downs there, which is Resolution Drive interchange, at this point in time only, is that correct? As volumes increase, you'll put a southern link so that people can travel south from that interchange. Would that be?
So councillors may recall that last time we brought this to councillors, NZTA were just proposing a link from Resolution Drive to the expressway and what we call north-facing ramps, so the ramps north of Resolution Drive, so not the 4 ramps, but just 2. So council took a position last time that we would like to see the 4 ramps for the very reasons you've articulated. NZTA's response has been, which is good, it's moving towards what we wanted to see, because our advocacy, we wanted the 4 ramps. So Kay's team have designated the expressway to allow the land footprints for the 4 ramps. They're proposing to put all of the dirt and the embankments in place, but they're just not going that extra bit at the moment to put the actual ramps on there. But substantially, it will facilitate putting ramps in, and what I understand is at some point in the future. So it's probably one issue that we're still a little bit at odds with NZTA on. I think council's position is we'd still like to see the ramps, and I think that's aligned with the second part of Mr. Curtin's submission today.
Right, any further questions?
So are those 2 final ramps still open for discussion? Has a decision been made on that yet?
So NZTA have indicated to us that that they don't propose to build the ramps, but council can still maintain its position that they'd like to see the ramps. It'll come out, I suspect, in the alteration to designation process that NZTA are about to follow. So Kay, do you have any comment on it?
My only comment there is we're building significant infrastructure, and we face the same issues that you're facing in terms of funding Resolution Drive, and at the time, what do you build and how much can you fund? We can produce lead infrastructure and build our infrastructure early, but there's a cost to doing that. So at this stage, we're saying those south-facing ramps are not required as yet. Economics, it's sensible to do it at the time it is required. So we're not proposing to do it, as Chris has explained, we'll future-proof for it. We'd certainly be open to hearing the views that council had, but if the benefits were such that it fell, more to the council and it was the council that was wanting it and benefiting it, we might then negotiate in terms of the contribution and the shared co-funding of the infrastructure.
If I could be clear, it is a significant step to have all the earthworks and the embankments built from the ramp, so that's quite a costly part of the exercise, so it's good that NZTA are going to build that and future-proof it, as Kay has said.
Can I just follow up on that? Kay, is the philosophy then, or whatever you want to call it, of NZTA, in a perfect world, would NZTA prefer to do the 4-laning now, not the 2-laning, based on some of the comments you just said?
In terms of the resolution?
Yeah.
That will be a decision for council. Our investor would be thinking in the same way as Chris had described, what's the infrastructure that's required now? So looking at the right time to build the 4 lanes, it would certainly be a conversation you could have, but essentially it's the council's infrastructure, so it's your call.
So can I just be clear, if I heard the question right, that was about 4-laning resolution
Yeah,
drive?
sorry, I was just following on from what
Yeah, I think if you look at,
Councillor King was saying.
if I just follow on from Councillor Tooman's comment about the traffic volumes, he's talking about the traffic volumes down at Wairau Drive, which is 20,000. By the time you get up to the connection to the expressway, it's a lot less than 20,000. It's down 7,000, 8,000. So there's still plenty of time that the 2-lane road will serve us well into the future. So,
If I heard you correctly, though, you said 2021 it will be reaching capacity, and given the trajectory of growth that our city, in particular, in the country is on, that's only 6 years.
yeah, that's between, it's outside the scope of what we're considering today. It's on our existing
Yeah.
resolution drive. The one we're talking about today is extending resolution drive, and there is no traffic volumes that would indicate that we're going to need 4 lanes in the immediate future. So I guess it's an issue for us as council with when we wanted to upgrade the existing part of resolution drive.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forsyth?
Thank you. I just want to explore or could you just remind me what sort of engagement council and NZT have had with the K Road resident group?
Okay. We've done a range of consultation with that group. We've had several open days, and our project team have spoken with individual people, affected landowners and people in the area. The school in particular we've spoken to, and community groups that have formed around there. We've also got a website that provides information, and we try to connect with people through as many channels as we can. The next open day we'll have out in the community is the 23rd of April, and again, we'll be publicising that and attending that with council staff, keeping you people informed. So there's a constant dialogue that we try to maintain.
So I understand you've had several open days, etc. I mean, yeah, that's one way of engaging or communicating, but it is kind of one way traffic. And you've said you have spoken to some individuals. Out of that, I mean, because we've had a submitter here today, so I am interested in the type of engagement that they've had. So out of the numbers that you've had at your open days, what sort of percentage or what sort of uptake from the whole lot of the Cambridge K Road residents would that make up? So is it a quarter, a fifth, a couple?
Of the people that live
Yeah.
in the area. I'm just
Yeah.
going to look for a steer from my staff. Percentages of-
It's hard to gauge that because we have over 150 people at the open day. A lot of them were there from the school, and a few of them, there were quite a few open road residents, because people were coming from a couple of them, that we don't actually ask for their name and address, it's not possible to get that, so it's not, I can't give you an accurate number.
So I think the point I'm trying to make is that we can say that we offer opportunities, but if we don't actually know who it is that we're talking to, how do we know we're targeting the people that we...
I think we need to take you back into the process, and we're interested in building infrastructure and getting it right.
Yes.
And we have a duty to mitigate effect. And the way to understand the effects is to consult. So we have to make reasonable attempt to do that. So we do as much as possible. We're very public with what we're doing, but it's up to the people to engage. So we've, as Joe was saying, we've had 150 attend the open day. We get people from outside the area, we get people from inside the area. And in terms of privacy, we don't record who comes. So if councillors are hearing of anyone that we've missed, direct them to us and we're more than happy to talk to them. But we feel that sort of response to an open day means that we're really getting out there. I think it'd be quite difficult to live in that community, not know what's going on with the media and the public attention as well.
Yeah, look, I understand the process, and I'm not suggesting that that you have to take names and addresses. I'm just wanting to know, well, how do you know if you're actually getting to the people if you don't know who you're talking to? But anyway, that's an aside.
The short answer, we don't.
You don't,
But
yep.
if anyone hears of anyone we're missing,
Yep.
just let us know and we'll sort that.
Yeah, okay. So I think what I'm trying to get down to, and Chris, you mentioned that you would be looking at some improvements that would perhaps respond to Mr. Curtin and his group and the overall scope of the whole project. Are you able to give us a little bit more detail around that?
Look, I think it'd be fair to say our focus has been down at the K Road end and the connection,
Yep.
and we haven't really turned our mind to the whole length of K Road, so that's what we're looking at the moment. Mr. Curtin's bringing it right back to Osborne Road, K Road intersection. So what he described to you really was an existing situation. Look, we don't, there's no indications that there is a real safety problem there, and that's different from people's perceptions. So we're just looking into that now, and the key for us, I guess, is the extra traffic that would put onto that situation, and when in our programming we might look at some improvements there. So we have quite a lot of work in our 30-year plan in that area there, including connecting Borman Road up in the fullness of time. Borman Road is probably going to be the more major arterial than K Road. So we're working with Colin Litt at the moment to get within a bull's roar of K Road, and we have in our 10-year plan a project to connect Borman Road fully up to K Road as well. So within that 10-year plan there may be another arterial connection there which attracts a lot of traffic as well. So we're working on that, and we you know, and we'll talk to that at the public open day, and we'll be asked to respond to that in the planning process.
Okay, look, I think the point that I really want to emphasise, I suppose, is that I think giving the opportunity for the K Road residents and Mr. Curtin to actively engage, not turn up somewhere, but having a meaningful opportunity to have some input is what I'm on about. Understand the scope of the bigger picture, and certainly supportive of that. But if there's an assurance that, and Chris, you've already mentioned it, that there's an opportunity for that kind of real communication and real engagement, then I'm happy with that.
Yep, we will do that. I think the K Road issues are council issues, so they're not really NZTA issues, so they are council issues. So we will engage properly with the
Great.
residents.
Thanks.
Councillor King?
Just going back to paragraph 57, the bridge, I take it, was in NZTA's budget, and I'm just trying to read, and if the two councillors agree not to put the bridge in, we can divert into NZTA's money into our own projects. Is that the essence of what that says?
If I can take you back and just remind you where we are on the project. We're currently tendering with two consortiums for this project. It's what we call a competitive alliance. So effectively it produces a lump sum to build the expressway as a total project. So what we do there is specify the design and say what connections we want and generally what road we want, so that we keep it open for innovation. So the project is not fully designed, and as we go through the process like we have now, and the conversation today is very heartening that the council is going to extend resolution through, we're constantly looking to see that we've got the right design and connectivity. So now that the joining up of resolution drive is on the table, we've looked at that as what we see as the optimal one network configuration. And it means that when we look at that, we've got the option that you don't need to build Osborne Bridge. So yes, in terms of that, there's a saving by not building that bridge. There is additional cost because the interchange of resolution changes. So as looking at it from a one network point of view, we're very keen to get the resolution connection across the line. So we return the saving of that into the project as such. We also understand the constraints on councils. So between all of that, we look to see where we redirect those funds with a focus to get resolution across the road. But it's not as straightforward as that bridge was going to cost X million, here's an amount of money that's gone somewhere. That structure was not designed, so we're still talking estimate figures. So really our focus should be on what is the contribution we need for the resolution drive from Hamilton City side, from Waikato District, and to be fair and equitable and facilitative about that.
Thank you.
Right, there are no further questions. The staff recommendations on page 37 is, do I have a motion from someone? Someone want to move the staff recommendation?
I'll move, Madam Chair.
Councillor Tooman, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mallett. Thank you. Any debate? Councillor Tooman, did you want to speak on that?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think what we have to be very careful of here is that every other local authority here throughout the Waikato has actually forsaken work in their own area in order to make sure that the expressway is complete. When we look at the proposal, of course, it's in a 4-lane from Cambridge all the way to the bottom of the Bombays, and hopefully, of course, Auckland might have sorted out their parking lot on the motorway by the time we get there. The economic development, of course, to the Waikato is going to be huge. We will actually have between the two biggest ports in the country, which is Auckland and Tauranga. I see that the Karanga Happy Gorge is past its use-by date for the modern technology and the heavy motor vehicles of today, and this will become the main route between the Golden Triangle as we know it today. The other major issue, of course, is going to be the safety factor. And when we go back into history, between Hamilton and the bottom of the Bombays was annually around about 20 deaths per annum. Ever since the introduction of the expressway north of Huntly, there's been 3, I think, since the wire ropes have gone in, so there's going to be huge savings through our health system as well. I think Hamilton and Waikato districts are going to be the two beneficiaries from this, and the other territorial local authorities around the Waikato, of course, have agreed that this is our #1 priority, and therefore I'd urge that you all support this.
Thank you, Councillor Tooman. Any further speakers? No, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? No, that's carried. Thanks, Kay, for coming, and thank you, Chris. Right, we'll turn back to the Chair's report on page 5. I just have a very quick verbal update on 2 items. The first one is the Strategy and Policy Committee work programme, which you had emailed yesterday. Brendan emailed that out, and do we have a hard copy as well? Or we've just, there is a hard copy coming as well. There's nothing new on that. It's Councillor Mallett's favourite word. They're just carryovers from last year. So they're just continuing on our work programme. So that's one. And the other item I just wanted to update you all on is the local alcohol policy is going to, you know, that's been on hold since April last year, and that's going to be coming to a briefing very soon. and we'll start that work again. So those are my only two updates. So with that, I will move that my chair's verbal report be received. And thank you, Councillor King has seconded that. I'm sure there's no questions or debate, so all those in favour? Any against? That's carried, thank you. Right, item 6, open minutes of strategy and policy, 24th of February, this is on page 7. I have checked that those minutes are accurate and correct. Are there any questions rising from the minutes or matters rising from the minutes? No? Okay, I will move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any debate? All those in favour? Any against? No, that's carried, thank you. Right, item 7, page 25, the review of the Public Places Liquor Control Bylaw. This is a determination report and is up to us to decide whether a bylaw is the appropriate tool to deal with this issue. Hello, Calvin and Asana. And I just want to acknowledge 2 members of the police in the audience as well, Karen Hendrickson and Jim Kernahan. Howdy in the back row. Right, you can take the report as read, so we'll just go straight to questions. Councillor Miller, did your hand go up? Yep.
Yes. Purpose of this report is to determine whether a bylaw is the most appropriate mechanism to address issues associated with possession and consumption of alcohol in public places. And then on page 26, we start dicking around with the definition of public places. We start, so it would apply to privately owned parking lots or school grounds. So I'm pretty much online with what we're trying to do here, except I think we're changing the definition of public places to include some clearly private places. And the sorts of examples, I guess, are, I know for myself that our kids' school, they frequently sell alcohol on functions and fetes and things like that. And those are private.
Yeah.
So your question, what's your question? You want
Well, I
clarification on-
think we're changing the definition of public places.
It's in the act.
If I may answer.
Yep.
Councillor, the changes has come through the Local Government Act, so it's not our change, it's an amendment to the Act.
Oh, so it's been done for us.
Correct.
It's been done to us.
It's that more government thing.
It is. It is, absolutely.
all right,
is.
yeah, there's no chit-chat, please. Come on.
So, okay, so my question is then, does that mean that this bylaw would apply to things that we wouldn't normally consider to be public places, i.e. schools, privately owned car parks, where people might run a farmer's market or something like that on?
Correct.
Correct.
That's just bloody lovely, isn't it?
Do you want your objection noted? Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got 2 questions which I think can be probably answered very quickly. They probably represent my lack of knowledge in this area. But the word possession in the paragraph 2 talks about possession and consumption of alcohol in public places. Is there a definition for the word possession? Does that mean me carrying a bottle of wine to a BYO restaurant and having to walk down the street with a bottle of wine under my arm? Is that possession of alcohol in a public place?
Yes, it is. But there is an exemption within the bylaw to cover that.
Okay. So as long as it's unopened or
You're
okay,
all right,
so there is a
There is an exemption.
Okay.
Within the bylaw.
Okay, all right.
Is that a conflict of interest there, Councillor?
No, never. And the second question is on paragraph 22. Councils must be satisfied that a high level of crime or disorder is caused or made worse by the consumption of alcohol in a public place. Is there a test point for that level of satisfaction that a council must have?
There is no set point as yet, but council before making a bylaw has to be satisfied that without a bylaw that the level of crime would return, and we
Okay.
would be consulting with police in obtaining any data they have to satisfy the current ban areas are justified, or
Okay.
inclusion of a new area is
Understand.
justified.
Understand that. So that would be part of the consultation process.
That would be
in
part of the
terms
review process.
In terms of testing that threshold point. Thank you.
I just have a question. At this point, I didn't pick it up from the report. You're not, it's your opinion that you're not envisaging any major change with the bylaw?
Initial pre-engagement with key stakeholders, they have not indicated any change.
Yeah.
So staff will be bringing a streamlined process for the BNI meeting on 13th May, and we at this stage would not be proposing, noting that we have not had elected member input yet.
Okay, thank you. Right. Oh, Your Worship?
I've got some questions about process. So as I read this, we're not proposing any changes to our existing bylaw apart from changes required by changes to the legislation. As I read this, there has been inquiry to the key stakeholders about their views on the current bylaw and its need. Right, I've got that right, and that's been recorded. And they're all pretty much saying, yep, we need it, it works well, don't think we need any changes. My question then relates to the process. I have raised this before. Why are we doing any process when we're just reconfirming the bylaw? And that relates, as Blair knows, to the changes in the legislation. So I'm really confused about the process, I have to say, and why we are not just carrying on with the bylaw.
Your Worship, if I could answer that. Section 147, staff reading was that it did not negate the need for councils to comply with section 155 onwards. And at this stage, 155 requires council to make a determination whether a bylaw is needed or not before we proceed. So at the next stage, we would come back with specific legal advice on section 147 in the streamlined process on reviewing the bylaw going forward.
Okay, so I have asked Chair for clarity about this because I'm sort of conscious of not wasting people's time and going out in a long-winded process when essentially the bylaw works and we're comfortable with the bylaw. And I haven't had that confirmed, but I am raising that as an issue because essentially we're carrying on with the same bylaw. And everything that we're being told says that's fine, we're not making a new bylaw, we're not changing the bylaw, we're just saying, do we need to continue with the same bylaw? So I did ask for clarity about that, and I haven't received that in time for this meeting. That's sufficiently clear about the process, given that the law's changed. I don't know who can address that for me,
So,
but
Jean?
I'm not sure that that's not my reading of it. That's my raising.
Yep. So Your Worship, obviously there is some further questions to be answered for you around the process. Absolutely, council needs to determine that a bylaw, we need to go through the step today, which is the determination step. The question that you raise is a very good question, and we will answer that in time for the BNI subcommittee and provide that information to you prior to then. And the essence of the question, as I understand it, is given at this stage there looks to be no substantive change to the bylaw, possibly only minor amendments and potentially only those reflecting legislative changes, what is the law allowing council to do in terms of the most streamlined process to bring the updated bylaw into fruition? So that is an answer that needs to be determined when we come to the BNI subcommittee, because the BNI subcommittee, the intention of this report is that the BNI subcommittee would receive the updated or proposed bylaw, and at that stage the very clear position, including the legal view on what is council's obligation from that step forward needs to be determined at that stage. So we will, between now and that meeting, get very clear legal advice to support the questions that you've raised.
Okay, so all I can say is that I did ask for that to be clarified for this meeting, because this is the committee that is responsible for policies, and if the process is we're reconfirming a bylaw unchanged, and that process is you simply determine that you're still within Bill of Rights legality, and the inquiry says the bylaw is still needed and it is unchanged, then we wouldn't need to go through any of that other process. So I guess I have to just accept that, but I did ask for it to be clarified for today. So there's nothing more I can do, I guess, except have that noted.
Yep. All right.
I don't have any other questions.
No. Councillor Forsyth, you had your question?
No, it wasn't a question.
Oh, okay. Councillor King?
I'm not quite sure who to refer this to, but the stakeholders, I presume the police, the health district health board, who else are the stakeholders?
Anyone who want to consume or carry beer in a public place, I suppose.
The list on page 29, was that the full list of stakeholders?
Those were the stakeholders that responded to us. The actual stakeholders we consulted, pre-engaged with, included Hamilton Central Business Association, the Police, Safety and CBD Group, which encompasses quite a number of stakeholders, Waikato Student Union, Student University Union, Hamilton East Neighbourhood House, Older People's Advisory Group, Younger People's Advisory Group, and the Runanga.
Are the public considered a stakeholder?
They are, but at that stage in consult, this was just research for today's meeting, and we aren't legally required to pre-consult on an existing bylaw because that has gone through a public consultation process. So for us to determine, to bring something to you councillors, it was during the time frame available to us, we just went to the three major stakeholders to get their understanding on whether the bylaw was working for them. And normally we do not consult with public at large before we go through the process.
So why is this being referred back to the Business and Investment Subcommittee? I'm just trying to get my head around what that subcommittee has, how they fit in with this bylaw,
Would you like
and what the reasons for that is. And is there a rush here? Is that the reason, or?
So I can probably answer that question. First of all, there's a time frame in terms that the bylaw need to be reviewed. So it's coming up to its 5-year date in terms of it must be reviewed. And the reason it's been referred to the B&I subcommittee is it's aligned with the B&I work program, particularly around the Central City Transformation Plan and safety initiatives. So it's part of that wider focus on safety and Central City transformation.
Are you comfortable that's the right thing?
It's a subcommittee of the S&P, yes, very comfortable, and it's certainly, we can take it to that subcommittee and still bring it back to the next S&P committee following that subcommittee in our normal cycle. So yes, very comfortable.
Thank you.
All right. No further questions. The recommendations on page 25. I'm happy to move that recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Second, Councillor Forsyth. Any debate? I just want to just make sure that we note then that that resolution, that we have a definitive answer to the Mayor's question on that 13th of May for that meeting.
Yep.
I think that's very important. Right, no speakers. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Are there any against? No, that's carried. Thank you. Right, item 8, page 33, the Hamilton Lake Domain Reserve Management Plan. This is a report to the committee just to commence reviewing a management plan. Hello, ladies. You can take the report as read. It's a nice, short, succinct report. Where are we? Page 33. Are there any questions? Councillor Mallett.
It says there's a budget allocated for doing the job, but it's not advised. What is the budget for doing the review?
Just through the chair, the budget is staff time to complete the work, so it's internal time to write the report and do the consultation.
So presumably if this wasn't done, that time could be allocated somewhere else, or we could have some time to save and some employment savings, some wages savings.
Yes, but this is part of our ongoing work program, is to review our management plans, and that's what the team is to do.
Thank you.
Councillor Pascoe?
Yes, a question that I had after reading the report. Are significant changes being mooted by staff, or are we simply going out to the public for consultation in terms of suggestions and ideas that they might have?
If I can, through the chair, we have had some of our existing users of the park identify aspirations for use of, some of our leases would like more space at Hamilton Lake and also Innes Commons. So the plan itself is to provide an opportunity for those users as well as other park users to come forward with what they would like to see in this space, and therefore for us to plan for that in the future.
So it just formalises approaches that you've had?
Yes, it does.
From users?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gallagher?
What's the current annual visitor use for Hamilton Lake, Innes Common?
Unfortunately, I do not have the latest figures with me, but we do have a track counter on the boardwalk around Hamilton Lake, and we were receiving around 10 to 15,000 per month of counts on that during winter. So what I can do is distribute the numbers that we actually have updated figures on that.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting. I'd just like to get a Hamilton Gardens kind of comparison, because obviously Hamilton Gardens is regarded as our iconic, and a lot of Hamilton Gardens would be, I think, out-of-town visitors, whereas the Hamilton Lake has significant use, but it's probably more Hamilton area use. With this plan, are we doing any sort of high-level review of this as, one of our major jewels in the crown, and the potential for this even to attract, regional visitor, in terms of it's incredible. So you'd have one of the best playgrounds in the region for a start. So, potentially as a destination, particularly if you're living in Cambridge, Morrinsville, that thing. So I'm just trying to I'm hearing from you that we've got some users who are interested in expanding, be it the hockey group or the soccer group or whatever, but I'm not necessarily hearing at the moment an assurance that we're going to take the big high level around the potential for this to be one of our major.
So the management plan review process does allow for that, and we do need to recognise that this park is a key destination within the city, and that we need to look holistically at both areas to provide for the future. So our consultation process will be widely open to the public, and obviously talking to key stakeholders, which will be users, but also the wider community in Hamilton.
Is there any component, just like, how we looked at the zoo, and we looked at its potential, as the zoo, Lake Whaiwhakariki, we've done the Hamilton Gardens. I'm just trying to get a sense that we're doing something a little bit on that level, and whether that's external or you've got some really good, I'm sure you've got some good internal people, but I'm just wanting to get the sort of a kind of visionary approach, 10, 20 years time. For example, we seem to have cracked it around the restaurant, current playground, that side, but if you go across as a regular user, there's increasing use on the other side, and that's multi-use, Wakaama, the yachts, but also the playground is being used. There's been different kind of functions, and then you go further to the sports across in Innes Common. If you see what I mean, I think there's some stuff that we basically have a very high level view of the whole.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons for doing the review, and obviously our past conversations are to bring that together as a whole for the whole area.
Right.
So, yes.
And you'll be bringing that back to an elected member briefing, so that some of the issues that Councillor Gallagher has raised that's our chance to make sure that they're captured there.
But
that's in July.
I've got it right that this is just as significant as the work we've done on the zoo. It may be easier in terms of the money and moving forward, and Hamilton Gardens, I rank it as a potential attraction for this city at that level. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your Worship?
I just have a couple of questions and it's a comment. I just want to clarify that engagement with Waikato Tainui will occur prior to the briefing.
If I can, yes, it will do, and we have already started discussions with them, so
Right.
we are working with that team.
Can I also ask that you advise elected members of the meeting dates and times, because I'm like Councillor Gallagher, I actually think this is a significant plan review and elected members should, and I'm sure some will, wish to attend those.
Yes,
If you
we
could
will.
advise. And number 3, Chair, I note that the recommendation doesn't confirm the proposed process, but given the changes in the legislation and the wording of section 41 in the Act, I do think that this again is an opportunity for us to, ensure that we are properly engaging and properly hearing people when the draft is put out. So I would like that to be the subject of discussion further at the briefing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Mallett?
Thank you. Page 33.5 says preparation review of the plans is mandatory under the Act. How specific is it, is the Act in terms of how often a plan has to be reviewed?
So the plan, under the Act, it says that we need to continuously review our management plans. So it's under continuous review. We do it every 10 years.
So we're doing, well, it says the last one was in 2010.
So that was only a minor amendment. It wasn't a comprehensive review. And the plan was initially developed in 1985. So it is time for a comprehensive review of the plan.
So currently we're operating off the 1985 plan.
No, we have an operative plan that was a minor amendment completed in 2010, so it has been updated, but based on our community feedback that we have received, we are suggesting that this is a comprehensive review to take into the account of some of the questions that councillors have raised today, as well as our community requests.
Thank you.
Right, no,
Sorry, what, if we had a minor review in 2010, I do remember about that, what is the date of the plan that we're now operating under?
So the operative plan is of April 2010.
No, but that was a minor change. Okay, let's ask it a different way. When was the last time we did a comprehensive review? Or we just had tweaks on the way since 85?
I understand it has been, since there has been tweaks on the way, just reading the first paragraph in the plan. So it was 2006 version that was updated in 2010, and before that it was reviewed in 1994.
So probably the more correct thing to say is that the last comprehensive review was in the mid-1990s.
Yes, it was.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Councillor Gallagher?
Just a further question. I think the yacht club is quite an interesting, as we've seen an evolution of two different uses in that, at least two different uses in that area, and wanting to sort of highlight, the potential sort of joint management type, evolution of a great facility over time, on that side. So it'd be quite interesting. And are there any ways, for example, can the hockey club, with the other users, to what are the points of cooperation, working together? And I guess in terms of whether there's a friends of the Hamilton Lake Inniscommon moving forward, or whether it's a sort of a ongoing group that sit there somehow in terms of its so that's some of those procedural stuff. And if if we look, dare I say it, if we look overseas or in Australasia, what equivalents do we have? It's like the Auckland Domain or whatever, and how are they managed?
one other point, Chair. Could I ask in the consultation phase 1 that they develop a hashtag so that people can give feedback via Twitter or Facebook with a designated hashtag?
That's a great idea. Did you write that down? Hashtag. All right, recommendations on page 33. Can I have a mover of the recommendation? Councillor Gallagher, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Forsyth. Is there any debate on that?
I guess with your leave, we're trying to move this meeting. I understand we've got a 3:20 delineation. I guess I said in my questions, I'm personally very enthusiastic. I compliment the great work staff have done already. And I think we should be complimenting our staff team because one only has to look at the veranda playground area, just as one example. All of it's lovely, all of it's wonderful. And who would have thought, if you can just cast your mind back to the older playground as it evolved, the old Lakeland restaurant, cafe, and what we see now. And I think that sort of gives us a tag over the next 10 to 20 years around the lake for huge potential, but compliments on work already done. And the other thing, I've got to say this, for those of you, the flowers down there, that is the best I've seen anywhere internationally. It is stunning. I mean, it is absolutely, unbelievably, the hedges, the flowers, stunning, and I haven't seen better anywhere in the world.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mallett?
I wonder if I could ask that...
no, we're into debate now. Question time is over.
Okay.
How are you going to work that one?
I know.
And the mover of the motion
You
has
will
said a start
keep a record of all the
pledge.
costs on this. And that's not a question. That was a statement. I'm not allowed to ask a question. You will keep a record of the costs of this review. Please.
Right. All those in favour?
I won't exercise my right to reply.
All those in
I
favour?
actually do want to speak, sorry. if I
Oh,
may.
sorry, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, I do think this is a significant piece of work, and picking up on some of the matters that Councillor Gallagher raised, it is actually very, very important that we do get some really good views from some of the users on the lake, because there is, since the mid-1990s, can I suggest, the landscape has changed considerably. And I think it is very important that we're now doing this piece of work. I also think that Councillor Mallett raises a very good point about tracking the costs of these matters, because they are statutorily required matters sent to us by the government that we must adhere to. And and we incur a cost to comply with government requirements. And I do think it is very important that these are costed accurately and transparently, so that the public understand the cost burden placed on local government by central government. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I voted? See, I'm all out of wait. No, we haven't voted, have we? All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Right, item 10, Community Assistance Policy. This is page 46, and as the committee should remember, the last time this came to the committee, some members raised some concerns and wanted some clarity around guidelines, criteria, and more alignment with the policy.
So if I may, through the Chair, I'll take the report as read.
Yep.
I'd like to thank the working party. From the last S&P, we actually reconvened another working party meeting and took on board some of the feedback received from the working group, and I think it was also an opportunity to re-engage with some of the key stakeholders who'd raised some concerns around some of the changes to the policy. I have since met with Sarah Nathan, the CEO of Creative Waikato, to take you through the draft policy of what you have in front of you today, and she's very happy with the changes that have, and the feedback that we've received from her. We've actually taken that on board and actually incorporated that within the policy. So I think the policy now is really reflective of some of the concerns raised at the last S&P was around consistency of language and ensuring that the policy is actually inclusive across all sectors, and people have some clarity, or sectors have clarity that they are eligible to actually can apply to our community assistance funding. I think the policy itself lends it to ensuring that that is the case. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Your Worship?
Just on page 53, in relation to the multi-year grants, under the fourth paragraph, multi-year grants will fund organisations for operating costs delivering. I just want to check with that, the use of the words operating costs, because I know it's not the intention, we've been on the working group of shutting out the opportunity for events or a one-off type of thing, I think, that, or a thing that might be held annually, like a performance or something in the arts sector, or an environmental initiative. Is the inclusion of the words operating costs, does that prevent that? Because all things may not be operating costs?
If
Or
I
have
may,
I read that wrong?
Yes, if I may, through the chair, the multi-year grants are there to support larger infrastructures that actually deliver programs or services or activities across a range of
So
sectors.
an example of one is?
So it could be Creative Waikato, or it could be Opus International. So we are focusing on larger infrastructure and targeting our funding to those larger infrastructures that actually have widespread impact across communities as opposed to smaller groups. So I think in relation to your question, Your Worship, we are looking to target larger infrastructures that deliver those programs that give wider spread impact as opposed to one-off events.
Yeah, no, I get that. I guess my question was around operating versus capital. For example, you know, a multi-year grant someone might apply for a multi-year grant to fund a piece of infrastructure that is a staged thing that they need to enable them to operate. So it wouldn't be operating. That I guess it sounds picky, but I'm just wanting to make sure that wouldn't shut that kind of application out.
Can you just clarify what you mean by
It
that?
might be, for example, sorry, Councillor Young, did you say something?
Like administration course as well,
Yeah.
and operation.
It might be, for example, in the arts space, it might be instruments. For a theatre group, it might be a revamp of something at the Meteor Theatre that assists the theatre space. So it's not operating as such. You see what I'm saying? It's.
I guess the trickiness, if we're looking at supporting an organisation over a 3-year course, would we be supporting the purchase of instruments for 3 consecutive years?
Yes. It's just that kind of example between operating and, so this is not intended to do that, it's intended to enable them just to operate on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and operating costs being that holistic, what it costs the organisation to stay sustainable and to
All
manage
right,
its
okay, thank you.
Can I just follow up, since we're on multi-year grants, with a few questions? So with the multi-year grant criteria, does that then not allow any new or emerging organisations to come in? I mean, this is given, if I've got this right, you agree with an application to fund them for year 1, year 2, year 3, and an organisation comes into the city, that's fantastic, and fits under our arts agenda, comes in year 2, they can't apply until the third year, that 3-year period is done and dusted.
So that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the changes we made to the multi-year grant criteria back in 2012 to align it purposely to our long-term plan.
So, yep, and so multi-year grant covers things, or could cover things like Creative Waikato, a neighbourhood community house. What's another example?
It could be the People's Project. It could also include Men's Night Shatter. So any organisation, because essentially our multi-year grants have only ever historically funded community houses.
Yep.
And that's been the case for a period of time.
So it is truly the operating cost, which is wages, administration,
Yes,
power, the
that's
phone
correct.
bill, stationery,
That's correct.
more of an administration cost to keep the organisation going. On that page 53, under the criteria, you've got who can apply are located in Hamilton. Given we are having the conversation strategically with all sorts of things, not just, certainly not just arts, about regional funding, when you say are located in Hamilton, does that mean and this is operating cost, does that mean the physical building of where the organisation operates has to be located in Hamilton? But that building could, like Creative Waikato is a regional arts organisation. They don't just deliver Hamilton, so is...
Primarily, they have to be organisations that contribute and to the well-being of Hamilton City residents.
Yeah.
So the physical locality, so if there's an organisation that has a physical locality here in Hamilton City and also have satellite sites around the region,
Yeah.
then they would be included.
They would.
But if they are based, say, in Thames Coromandel,
Right.
that's a different story.
Okay.
So every application, if they meet the criteria, they will be assessed against the criteria based on what they're seeking and funding from council for.
Okay, and just one last question. Oh, actually, two last questions. On the single year grant criteria, we've used the word artistic. In that second paragraph, the word community is used, yada, yada. It signals that our blah, 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 will support social, cultural, artistic and environmental well-being. We've never used the word artistic before to describe the arts, and in the arts agenda and in our Hamilton 10 for 10, we use the word arts. That would be my preference, that we use the word arts. Well, yeah.
Arts,
It's
yeah.
just artistic it's a completely different word, and
So we
it
can
doesn't
change
capture
that.
arts and performing arts for me personally. And just one other, when the working group met again, was the what was the outcome of the discussion around the 5,000 maximum funding per project for the single year grants? Because there was some conversation we had about maybe that's a bit low.
Yeah, so the conversation was, and purposefully, the small grants are for community-led projects. And if we were not to have a cap on the 5,000, we would essentially have applications from groups for potentially a $50,000 project. And if we're only going to be able to, in a position to only allocate 5,000 or 3,000 or whatever, the likelihood of those projects getting off the ground, if they're reliant on our funding to enable that project to be implemented, the likelihood is that those projects may not happen.
And an event, sorry, I know I'm skipping it a little bit, but I'm catching up with some of the words that you're saying. For multi-year grant, that's for events as well, isn't it? Is it?
No, they're for operational grants for large
So
infrastructure
where do
that deliver.
events sit?
So there is, the events will fit within the small community-led projects because they are community-led projects and that's what that funding's available for.
Right, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Councillor Gallagher, you had your hand up?
Just, policy under page 50, and I don't know if there's an earlier version, number 9. The allocation committees for both the single and multi-year will have a membership of 7, 2 elected members and 5 community reps. Get that. Then the next word is selected each year by the general manager community. What explain that? Just so I understand the interpretation of that.
That was trying to articulate that the multi-year grant committee would meet once every 3 years, so it would be appointed for, I guess, that triennium, but the other one would be meeting each year. So we wanted to.
I understand that, the actual selection of them. If I read that, have I got that wrong?
The process would be publicly notified, but then ultimately the general manager.
Is that,
community
but
would have to
that
make
wording, am I just totally missing this? Selected each year by the general manager community.
Doesn't that
I
reflect?
think
That's
yeah.
for the small grant allocation, so we need to clarify that a little bit clearer.
Because obviously we have a process.
Yeah.
And you run it.
Yeah.
Obviously, but the actual, the names come here and they do the normal They go somewhere.
As we do, you raise a
So
really...
just a slight clarification. And now, just so that we're clear, and I understand that we have to embrace, change and a beginning. We can debate the budget. If we had a generous, lovely council in years to come, they might grow this area, But the minimum funds, where we look at 260 versus 900, can we just, so we clearly understand, an apples for apples, and I'm not necessarily disputing that, because I understand we've done some deep strategic thinking around the need to really be effective in terms of the 900,000, our potential to be effective. But what's the sort of comparison? Which one's going up and which one's going down?
Are you talking in terms of...
The small grants, what's the current, an apples for Antrim, what is the current quantum around the small grants?
505 for the small grants.
Single year.
Single year.
How much?
505.
505, but then that's split and there's certain different
multiple
pockets.
Yes,
Yeah.
So
there is-
really what we...
there is a reduction in single year grants.
Yeah.
Significant.
And we're transferring that across to
The multi-year.
the multi-year on the basis that there's a perception that we can be there's a more effective community benefit in doing this way. I guess, I know we've discussed it in the workshop, but I think it's quite good to just so we're clearly...
So if I can clarify,
Yeah.
the working party set the quantum amount and then gave the autonomy to staff to do the split between the single year and the multi-year grants. And that's how that kind of came about.
The overall bucket of 1 point...
Oh, the bucket is the same.
The bucket's
you
the
get
same,
that, absolutely. But I guess we just, we're crystal clear that we understand that there's some reallocation, and I guess after the first year in terms of the 260, we'll always keep a running analysis of how that works in practice. And then, as you clearly say, if the 900 is not all allocated, then that transfers back across to the small grants.
Potentially that could happen, but I would say that we will be oversubscribed for the 900, which is what we essentially are every year for our funding, and we will be allocating the full amount of 900.
I'm asking you professionally, right, in terms of your, the professional you and your team bring to the table, and albeit, we allocate a quantum, is this a reasonable sort of proportionate split in terms of what is effective community outcomes?
If I may, through the chair, I think with the focus of supporting larger infrastructures that have a wider benefit to the community and delivering, services, programs and activities, we're probably going to get a better value for our dollar and a better investment there. We can provide then the assurities to some of those organisations in terms of their delivery in that space. But our funding contributed or combined with the funding that they receive from central government or any other funder will contribute to the overall wellbeing for our communities and our city.
Councillor Forsyth?
Thank you. Can you just refresh my memory? Has this council significantly cut community grant funding?
No.
That's what I thought. Thank you. And secondly, is the current trend, just from information that I've received, that single year grants or multi-grants seem to be more popular, or a smarter way, or another way of another priority for funding? Is it? Do you have a...
If I may, through the chair, I think that's kind of the best practice at the moment across most funders, providing larger pools of funding for larger organisations that give a wider impact to the community. That's seen as a number of funders are actually doing that. Even central government, it gives assurities to organisations who are delivering in that space to be able to get on and actually provide some measurable outcomes. And, the single or small grants is really for small project-based initiatives or events or whatever that is. So, we'd get a better return on our investment in terms of, supporting some of those larger infrastructures.
Okay, that was my feeling as well, so thank you for that. So we're still doing both. We've still got the small grants and supporting the more sustainable.
Yep.
They are very different. So the outcomes are very different from supporting a small volunteer organisation versus a larger community infrastructure. And so it can't necessarily be compared straight away because they are different for different purposes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Councillor Mallett?
Thank you. On page 46.4, resolve that the Chief Executive review the efficiency and cost effectiveness of delivering this service and the policies be reviewed. What feedback did we have in terms of reviewing the efficiency and cost effectiveness?
If you'll remember...
And I was part of it.
Yeah. If you remember, Councillor Mallett, this has been an ongoing process for a whole year. And 2012 was when we actually essentially did review the policy and presented that back to council. And there again, we've done it again. We've implemented the Smarty Grants online platform for applications, so that's reduced the administration costs to...
But that was that was done from your 2012 review, wasn't it?
It was, that's
okay.
correct. So as part of this process, it was looking at, what have been the savings in that space. I mean, I can't give you the definitive dollar figure, but I do know that in terms of the cost and time of staff time, as well as community members who've been part of the allocation and assessment panels, it's been significant.
The Smarty Grants.
Smarty Grants, yeah, online.
Which is
platform.
online.
Yeah. So prior to that, we did that all paper-based on Excel spreadsheets, which wasn't very efficient.
Thank you.
Right, no further questions. The recommendations on page 46.
I have one question.
Do I have a mover?
I have one more question.
A question?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just wonder, for the multi-year grant, you mentioned that when can you apply? 1st of April, 2015. So do you think we should change the date?
Yes. We will change that.
Not now.
No.
After the meeting.
Yeah.
So we're looking to actually, once this is signed off, looking to actually put this out and opening it up from the 20th of April for a month.
Your Worship?
Sorry, it's just that we did talk in the working group about an A3 size piece of paper that contained all the information people needed to know, and that would be distributed to the various organisations. So that's been now done?
That's been completed,
Right.
that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So is there a mover for this item?
I'll move.
Councillor Young, thank you. And a seconder? Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Young, would you like to speak on this item?
Just briefly, I think we've been having this discussion for quite some time already, and I think time is really running out because the multi-year grant actually will be started on the 1st of July this year. So we need to move on and open the application for groups to apply. And I believe the quantum is right because we need to focus on more of the 3-year long term. So as mentioned by staff, we want to know what's the outcome. And for the single year grant, actually the amount has been reduced from 505 to 260. But as staff mentioned, this is mainly for the community organizations, smaller groups, for small projects. And I'm really happy to see the 900,000 for the multi-year grant. So I'm happy to move and support this recommendation.
Okay, I'd just like to say a few words. I'm going to support the policy, but I do have some reservations about it. I think the working group chaired by Councillor Young, thank you to Councillor Young and to all the members of the working group. You've had a really difficult task with this one. It has been a really long process. This is one policy that I would like to be put onto our policy monitoring report that I've had discussions with the GM and his team about. We need to get this report going because, yeah, it's a policy that we're really not going to understand until it's implemented. But I think to get it to this point, you've done a really very good job. So I'm just using this to add some weight behind the appearance of that policy monitoring report. All right, so any further speakers? Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, I agree with you totally on this, and I think certainly I would anticipate when the multi-year grants and small grants committee is met, that they will be delivering quite comprehensive reports back to back to this committee. And because obviously I think we really, in the year one, want to get a sense, particularly around the small grants. I think secondly, in terms of the people from the community who are either, reappointed or newly appointed onto those respective committees, that, in terms of getting the right skill base, covering the right disciplines and covering the right areas is going to be quite crucial. So I think there are two steps. One is that I anticipate comprehensive report back after the work is done, particularly in that first year. And then I think picking up in terms of the monitoring. And it's like these things, if there are sort of obviously unintended consequences, or consequences we didn't foresee or difficulties, then obviously we can move, within reason to deal with that, because this is a new area and I realise that there are winners and losers in this at this point. The other thing I do, I just place on record my appreciation, dare I say it, for the very high calibre of staff and professional advice we have from your department, and the linkages you have. I think that's, your department has, and I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Councillor. Your Worship?
Community grants from this council have had a checkered history, and there's been various pots of money all over the place, and one would say rather confusing. There's been inequity, there's been lack of certainty, and I think that in the past councillors would have been hard pressed to know, number one, whether we gave community grants, and number two, how we gave them and to whom. So while this has been a long journey, I would say it'd be the first time in a very, very long time that there is one policy that is very, very clear. The second thing that I think is really important is one of the major concerns that came from the community was inequity, because there were different pots for things and some had more money than others. So this is the opportunity to right that and give equity. And thirdly, one of the other things that the community have said very strongly is we need certainty if we are to deliver good value from ratepayer money. And a little bit here and a little bit there doesn't really do that. There's a place for that, sure, but in the main there is a need to give long-term benefits with serious projects and organisations, and this ticks that box as well. The debate about whether council should be in the business of giving grants or not was something that preoccupied the working group considerably, and hence the long time this process has taken. And the council as a whole has discussed that issue a number of times as well. This is where we've landed, and I think Councillor O'Leary is absolutely right to say let's hear back over the next couple of years to see whether this does reflect what the community was saying about how grants are delivered and what benefit the city gets from this sort of activity that the council is in, because I'll be very interested to see that. So I also want to thank the staff and the working group, because actually we did a lot of hard work in that working group and looked at a lot of different things and didn't always agree, but this is where we've landed. Thanks.
Thank you. Right, that's been moved by Councillor Young, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Councillor Mallett? Great. Thank you. Thank you. Item 11, page 55. Community Facilities Report. This is about a process to review our community facilities portfolio. We've had numerous workshops on this, so you can take this report as read. And you're also asking for 5 elected members. Now, committee, I did send an email around. It was late, who wanted to be on that working group. I did get a reply back from Councillor Young, thank you. Is there anyone else that is going to be putting their hand up to be on this working group?
Don't rush.
Yeah. I've got some names on my list.
no one wants to volunteer, I'm happy to go on it, but I'm going to pop in anyway. But Chair, could I just suggest, I do think a finance person is required, because
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we've started this process has been driven out of an analysis of the finances.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to go on it.
Thank you,
I've been
Deputy
involved at Enderley.
I might volunteer just to keep an eye on them,
Fantastic.
Quickly,
just to make sure things don't disappear in the dead of night.
And do I hear a yay from the finance team? Councillor Pascoe,
But I guess
Councillor
we better
Nutt?
keep a bit of a watch on the spenders, hadn't we? So,
Councillor Pascoe? Terrific. Right, anyway, we will go, thank you, that's very good. 1, 2, 3, that's 4.
Have you got my name down?
And Margaret, wonderful. Councillor Forsyth, that's 5. See, look at that, eh? Excellent. Right. Are there any questions on the report?
I'll move.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any debate?
I'd like to make a couple of comments. I mean, I think to some extent this may have come out of the community assistance policy discussion, because I have had and still have a concern that as a council we're not that articulate in the way that we tell our community exactly what benefits we provide to the community, not only in a in terms of the facilities that we provide, but also the value that we provide. And I think locked into this area here are a significant subsidies and values that are have never ever been clearly costed out and then rate residents informed as to the value of those services that the council provide. And it may be quite alarming for us when we see the value of those facilities that the ratepayers are effectively offering. So it does concern me a little bit that the stadia, the theatres and the pools are excluded, because I think that there are some quite significant subsidies built into groups like, excuse me, like Northern Districts Association, like the Rugby Union, like some of the theatre groups, and the value of those benefits that those groups receive. And whilst I think they are generally well-earned benefits, I think it's important that we do have some sort of dollar funding which recognises the true value of what they're getting.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Look, it was really just a comment and a question. I've been involved at several meetings at the Enderley Community Facility, and I did indicate to them that this was a likely move forward, and I think they were very happy to hear they weren't under pressure to respond to council by a certain time frame. I just want to establish the process from here on. Will you be, if this is moved, and I expect it will be advising those groups of this process so everyone has a clear understanding of the time frames, particularly for the outcomes?
If I may, through the chair, yes, I will be. And I have been in constant contact with those groups who have indicated an interest prior to us getting to this point. So, yeah, I will be engaging and keeping them abreast of what the process is moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this work is to me is just carrying on the work that's already been done, particularly around the stadia, theatres, libraries. I think it'd be good just to be reminded as we go, alluding to Councillor Pascoe's point around what we're doing already. But this is also about how do we maximise, with limited resources, social good and community good. How do we effectively do that in terms of management of assets? But the other thing too, in terms of the work that's been done in a number of areas around how do we relate, for example, with other organisations and work out what other community facility might be the Y. You know, the fact that we no longer own the Y, people still go to it. It's still a great, community asset. So it's just seeing our bits in the context of the wider, and also in terms of our school our school communities and ensuring that, you know, we just make sure that there's the dovetail, and we're looking at the Tauranga example, we look at joint facilities, we look at the work that we're doing around in Rototuna, etc., the new high school up there. So I think this is, albeit I made some humorous remark to keep an eye on Councillor Pascoe, I find myself agreeing with him in this one. And I do think this is actually quite a bit of important work. Yeah, there's a proper good asset management, getting value for money, but using our resources in such a way that we maximise social good.
Councillor Mallet?
Thank you. Can you just remind me, what is it costing us to run the museum every year?
We're not onto the museum, Councillor Mallet. We're in debate for item 11, which is community facilities report.
Oh, sorry, I've got one ahead of myself.
I like the speed with which you're progressing, because we've only got 10 minutes left of the meeting. Right, so thank you.
I've passed on that one already.
Just confirming, we have the first 5 councillors down this end of the table. And I'd just like to nominate Councillor Forsyth. Would you be happy to chair this working group? Yeah,
good.
thank you. Is that okay? Right, so all those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Right.
I have a question.
Now that's the
I have a
museum.
question.
Yes, I'm sure you do. Page 58. Museum Strategic Review. Take it as read. We'll go straight to Councillor Mallet. Councillor Mallet, you're up. Go.
What's it cost?
The direct net expenditure is $3.9 million a year, and there's revenue of about 800,000. With the
So when you say direct net, that's after you've taken the
overheads. If you put the overheads in there, the full cost is 5.1 million, and then you've got the revenue taken off that of 800,000, so about 4.3, including overheads.
Right.
I thought you might ask that question. That's why I came prepared.
Well
Yeah,
done.
good.
Surprised everyone doesn't know it's going to come.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Forsyth.
Happy to speak to it?
Yes?
Can we ask questions?
Yeah,
or-
yeah.
Yep.
I'm just concerned with the amount of documents that are going out to the public for public submission and consultation, and whether we're overdoing it. And if we really want the public to participate, we've just got so many things going on. And unlike the Reserves Act, it appears that there's no statutory requirement for this. It's not mandatory. Surely we have management and governance and experts, industry experts that are brought in, like it says, and surely we can change the name of the museum, or they can, to do appropriate things with the facility. I'm just raising really why. I mean, is this about restructuring the management down there, or what happens down there? Is it, have we got other plans for it? I'm just struggling as to why this has to be an official out to the public consultation document when there's no requirement that I can see for it.
I think if you look at the report, there hasn't been a full review of the strategic direction of the Waikato Museum since 2003. And I think in sections 21 and 22 are probably the key points to this, is that we've now developed the Hamilton plan and also the river plan. And we've been doing strategic plans for some of our other key assets in the city. My view is that there's a real need to do this so that we maximise the investment that we're putting into the Waikato Museum to get the maximum benefit in relation to those other strategic plans. So I think the other thing is being involved in the Arts Forum, and Councillor Chesterman might want to comment on this as well, is that there's I think there's a real interest from people involved in the arts, culture, and also the tangata whenua offerings at the museum. People are interested in that throughout the city and at the museum. I think there's a real interest from people that we actually do this work. So it's actually really look at where we're heading with our strategic direction down there in relation to everything else that's going on across the city and with those other reviews that we've been doing. So this is probably one of the last pieces of the jigsaw going forward.
is it not working at the moment?
I wouldn't say that, but I think there's always room to improve and to actually look at, what was relevant in 2003 may not be relevant now, and what's needed for the city and the benefits that we can accrue. So what we've come up with is really, I think, is a reasonably efficient way of actually working through a strategic planning process, and we've done that in other areas which I've mentioned, and my view is that we've done that quite successfully, and we start to link up all the parts to deliver on the Hamilton plan.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah, I certainly don't claim expertise compared with some of my colleagues who sit around this table, except to say that I think this is well overdue and very timely, and again, I look at this facility as iconic like the other things we have. And, just for example, I had a really, as I'm sure a number of it, conversation with the Friends, Kath Lang of the Friends of the Museum, just even around the name issue, and whether the name adequately describes what actually the facility and what is doing and how we evolve that. Really exciting around in terms of some of the fine arts exhibition space and some of that work in terms of the vitality in that area, and I guess how you balance off, because it seems to me one of the things at the moment the museum is trying to do a heck of a lot, cover a heck of a lot, and that may continue to be the case. But I'm really interested because bearing in mind that we've had some discussion in other places around aspirations around a gallery of fine arts or whatever, separate building, or do we just grow or do we refine, what we have? So all of that, I think it comes into the discussion in terms of aspiration. For example, we're looking at the footprint behind the arts post. That's one of the key so-called riverside development sites, and I want to avoid a situation that happened in the past where we have a development but we've totally ignored the needs and the potential and the synergies with the institution right next door. So let's get all of that stuff right. So to a degree, I think this will help inform that. What I like about this report, it also makes reference to the strong links to the river plan, and of course visitor destinations. So I think there's quite a bit of work to be done, and I think, dare I say it, the world and the city has changed quite significantly since 2003. So, Madam Chair, I just think this is really timely, and I just say, as one of the people who knows less perhaps about this area than one or two of my colleagues, I'm really wanting to be in a learning mode, and I'm really wanting to be open-minded. Trust me, I want to be open-minded when that report comes back.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I certainly couldn't agree with Councillor Mallett wanting to auction off all of the museum assets. It certainly would raise a lot of money, but it wouldn't get my support. I would actually think that...
Point of order. Where on earth did you get that from?
Scotland's.
No, where did you get it from?
I'd have to dig deep.
Made it up.
Okay.
Look, there is
So we just
even a
light
case.
readings now,
There is even a case to be argued to purchase the old Hamilton Club next door, which is sitting there available for around $1 million, right next to the museum and part of that Arts Post complex. I know we've never talked about it, but it would seem to me that it would make an excellent mini gallery, if you like, for some of the heritage collection that we have in the city. So I just throw that on the table just to see if there's any interest down the track on that, because at some point the building will be sold, potentially for a corporate use and office use, and yet it's one of the older buildings in Hamilton as the former Hamilton Club.
Right, thank you. Any further speakers, Your Worship?
The reason I moved this motion is because this is well and truly overdue. To suggest that a plan from 2003 is still relevant today is quite frankly ludicrous. The city has changed vastly, so has that sector changed vastly. And it is very, very important that we get on and do this. The other point is we need to maximise the value of this place for the city. And that is not only as a statement in the arts sector, but also, quite frankly, financially. And this is the only way we're going to inspect that, by doing a proper review and a proper plan. The other thing that's very important is when you sit around this table, you realise how there are some sectors that you must always talk to. And one of those sectors would be the arts sector, the arts community. And they have strong opinions about what they think about their space and what would be valuable. And I'm very pleased to see that before it comes back to a briefing, for us to have our input into the strategic direction of the museum, that the staff are going to be talking with those people that will have a very strong view about where the future lies. I do want to reconsider where to in terms of engagement at the briefing, because if you've talked to the experts, it's highly likely that with our input that there won't be any further need to do any other talking as such, because people do want action. You know, they want us to make decisions, and as long as we talk to the informed right people, we should be pretty right. So I want to have another look at that when you come back to the briefing. But otherwise, yeah, good. This will be very good, and I think the public will receive it well.
Could you just expand on that last little bit of who you were looking at talking to?
Well, those people are listed in paragraph 26. Yeah, 26, because those are the groups that represent the arts sector, and they will have, you know, really important, informed and quite strong views. And I'm sure they have already expressed, well, I know they have, because they've talked, some of those people have talked to me about, you know, what they see as a time to review where the museum's going. Yeah, and I think that will provide a really good basis for us to have a good discussion at our briefing about what our input into that strategic direction will be. So I think that's really good. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Mallett?
Just following on from where Andrew started off, concerns me that there's a perception that the museum hasn't changed since the last strategic review, which is, I'd say, if that's the case, then what the heck are your management's doing down there? And I don't think that is the case. I don't follow, because what we've had today at this meeting is just a procession of other plans to start doing.
Councillor Mallett, you are debating, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, sorry, carry on.
So my concern is that and I notice there's no budget allowed for this other than the 30 to 50 for the external experts. So that either means we're going to get our staff to work doubly hard, or there are plenty of staff down there at the moment and they're not doing too much. I don't know, or some middle position. But I'm concerned that the way the museum and any enterprise should be is incremental change. Bit by bit, you change with your market, you find out what your customers are doing, what your supporters want, and you make subtle changes day by day. You don't have to have this great big flag-waving public consultation process. And to me, it strikes me as sort of a fundamental breakdown in the way we run the business, that we have to continue. We don't change anything until we've had a strategic plan. So I wouldn't support this. And again, as I asked with the previous one, that will you please keep a track, if this goes through, a track of what it does cost? So where will you get the budget from?
So this is in our work program, and when you talked about staff, then that's been factored into the work program for not only museum staff, but staff in other parts of the organisation that assist with these types of planning. But I do agree with the iterative, but also it's good to review your strategic direction on a regular basis. And I think probably one of our self-criticism is that maybe that should have happened a bit more regularly since 2003.
Right, thank you. Any further speakers on debate? I think Councillor Mallett raises a good point, and I'd like it noted, and I've noted it, that in future when these kinds of reports come up, that there is a little bit more explanation around the budget and how we're going to track the budget of the review. I think that that's a valid point. So that's been moved by Her Worship the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Forsyth. So all those in favour?
Aye.
And any against? Councillor King and Councillor Mallett. Thank you. Right, councillors, there's 3 more reports to go. Our guests are waiting for us. I don't like to keep people waiting. The last 2 reports are for information only. And the next one on page 62 is retrospective approval of submissions. Now, one of those submissions, oh no, sorry, no, ignore what I just said. We can do this if the committee has no questions. We can work through these in a couple of minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to push them to the next meeting.
I only have a very quick question.
On
the submission to the District Council around the community, around the Tamahiri one. Sorry, that's the second one for the District Council. Sports park, general policies.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that one. So what, sorry, councillor, what's your question?
And perhaps, whether it's I suspect it's Lance, just in terms of that item 6, and, we talk about the regional, regional sports facilities plan and a concern we had in terms of the Tamahiri Recreation Reserve. I know you'll be able to just give us just a quick...
Well, I think looking at, basically in essence, looking at the management plan, we didn't think it was as strategic as it could have been in where its direction had come from, and whether or not it had taken into account a significant piece of work that's happened regionally and should be looking across boundaries. And so that's the reason why we've made this submission, that in future that really it's a flag that we'd like to think that all district councils would use that significant piece of work and information to actually drive their investment going forward, so there wasn't duplication or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a need in Tamahiri, but to us it didn't actually demonstrate that clearly enough, and the links to regional and sub-regional needs and direction.
Yes, so without wanting to unduly interfere in a neighbouring authority, the submission, all I'm saying, is obviously pretty relevant because, a regional facility plan, obviously we're all on board with that. And is that really what you're asking, to go back and revisit?
Yes, so it wasn't criticism, it was just saying that we believe that if there's that piece of work there, that it would be prudent for them to take that into account.
And without being rude to District Council, I just want to have assurance that they are serious, which I'm sure they are, very serious, around working closely with us in these areas to ensure that we don't have duplication and waste.
So we've spoken to their staff and they were comfortable with the submission.
So really it's the level at Tamahiri. It's not necessarily not telling them not to have a facility, but it's just making sure it's links. No, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll get this one done. So recommendations on page 62. Can I have a mover? Councillor Pascoe, thank you. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion or debate? All those in favour? You want to discuss? Yes?
Yep. I would not agree with 2.3 of the Well Energy Trust one, the provider of, the Major Transformational Projects Fund. That shouldn't, in my view, we shouldn't be supporting that. That money should go back to power consumers.
Thank you.
Do you want to take them individually then, Chair, given that Councillor Mallett doesn't support one of the submissions? Perhaps that's
do you support the next submission, Councillor Mallett?
Yep.
Yep, you do? Okay, happy to take those separately. So the first submission, Well Energy Trust. Councillor Pascoe, you happy to move that?
Happy to move that.
Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Councillor Mallett is against. That's been carried. And the second submission, Waikato District Council's Draft Sports Park Reserve Management Plan. Can I have a mover for that one? Councillor Pascoe, and seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Right, committee, I'm going to push the next 2 items, which are for information only, onto the next meeting's agenda. So with that, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much. you.